which is a little bit different than 3D prototyping. However, it's equally as important. Before I go deep into prototyping as a term and as a technology, I'm going to talk about a little bit, I'm going to get out of context to talk about a little bit about what software is. And basically, software, whether that's a mobile app, a desktop application, or a website, it's something that we usually interact with, either on the screen or with our mouse, with our hands, with our voices sometimes. The other main ingredient for software is that it needs someone to interact with, and that's people. And that leads me to the question, okay, what makes software great? And concentrating on the fact that software is used by people, let's try to discover why some software are considered great and some software are not great. So to compete in a competitive market like today's market, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to beat software that compare great when compared with others. And the reason for that is that, of course, too much competition, too many great companies, too many great engineers and designers or whatever. So how do you stand out in a vast audience? It's very difficult to build software. The users are very demanding. The users, we're talking about people again. They have very high standards because big companies like Apple and Google have set the standards very high. They're very demanding and they're very impatient. So how can we get into the game to build great software? Let's assume that we want to build, for example, a mobile app that would be a calculator. How could someone build a mobile calculator mobile app and sell it for $2.99 or $1.99 on the App Store or Google Play, Google Store, while at the same time there are so many free mobile apps out there, and even the phones come with a built-in operating system calculator app. So, and the answer is that the main difference, the main reason that makes some software look bad and some software look good, and what drives the difference is user experience. User experience ranges from many different ways, but if we want to put it in a simple way, we can say it's the experience that the user gets when the user interacts with the software. And that could be anything from frustrating to pleasure. So, like in my definition would be bad software are the software that create a bad experience, a frustrating experience, and I'm sure that all of you here have experienced that, either using your phone, or a mobile app on your phone, or a desktop app, or a website, especially in Cyprus, that we see a lot of these things. Because I will explain later why. And I'm sure that a lot of you came across beautiful apps that they worked great and they were able to achieve what they were meant to do in a very nice way without any frustrations. And that leads me to say that the first thing that any software developer, anyone engaged in the software development process, regardless of the role, the first thing that they need to worry about is people. And basically to answer four main questions. Who is going to use your product? Because people could be diverse, it could be a specific part of the world, it could be anyone. The second would be why you're building this software, how you're going to address all the needs of the people that will use your software, and what you will need to do to achieve all of the above. And that, it's called human-centered design. Basically, human-centered design is a process that involves many people from different backgrounds, scientists, and artists as well. And the principle of this design process is to use the human person, the user, as the center of everything in their process. So, just to name a few of the roles that the human-centered design process team will have will be, of course, software engineers. They're the people that write the code. But perhaps those people will be at the last part of the ladder. Designers, of course, visual designers, UI designers, interaction designers, because every software has an interface. But then again, we have psychologists, social scientists, data analysts that they analyze data that they get from early user tests and user validation, and so on. And there are many ways to classify what's necessary for a good software, but the main ingredients are on the, let's say, technology part and the scientific part. It's performance, stability, reliability, and accessibility. In other words, we want our software, whether it's a simple weather app or a calculator app, or it's a sophisticated 3D printing simulation software, to perform well, to be stable, to be reliable, and accessible. All of these four factors create what we call frustration when one of them is missing or when it's misbehaving. At the same time, of equal value are the artistic part of what we call human-centered design, which is not necessarily artistic, but not as technical. The information architecture, how your software is designed in terms of information, how it presents the information, and the actual content copy of the information. The visual design, how it looks, in other words, the user interface design, and how everything behaves. And of course, lately with all the mobile applications and devices, a major part in the user experience for the user is created by the interaction and motion design that we see on all these apps. How things animate and how things perform. And it's a matter of combining all of these, let's say, characteristics to build the perfect app. Just to give you an example, even for a simple calculator app, if I use motion or sound, especially in cases where I have a network connection or a calculation that needs 100 milliseconds to perform, I can easily throw an animation there that will be subliminal to the user and will even give a pleasant reaction to the user. And so there are many details. I will not go further into this. Okay. One last thing before I go into prototyping is the misconception that all of us software builders, let's say, whether we're engineers, designers, product managers, startup enthusiasts, entrepreneurs, anyone has this misconception that what they think that other people think the way they think. That would make sense. So in other words, we all think that everybody else will behave and receive our software the same way we receive it. And that's a huge misconception, and that's why a lot of the software products fail. In fact, 80% of the apps downloaded from the app stores are only opened once by the people that just download. And the reason for that is that most of us, even in small startups, in huge corporations, we fail to do the process, the human-centered design process, and we fail to do the vital steps of the process. And one of the vital steps is user testing. So we build the software, we launch it to the market, and then when users actually test it and they use it, we realize that we failed. So how do we go from that bad experience to create a beautiful experience for the user to use our software and make our software unique and be different from the rest of the software? And that comes with prototyping. Prototyping is, I would say, it's a service. So prototyping is part of the entire life cycle of building the software. The entire software life cycle, it spans across the entire life cycle, and it's also acts as a spec sheet for the entire team that uses and builds this software. So in plain terms, the prototype is a visual simulation of your software. In 3D printing or in 3D real world actual manufacturing, a prototype would be the first of its kind, as the Greek word says. the first of its kind machine that will look and feel exactly and work exactly like the real machine. In the case of software prototyping, it doesn't have to be real. It can only be a visual simulation of a real software. In other words, if I want to build a weather app or a calculator app, I don't actually need to build the app with code for my prototype. I can simulate that using different techniques. And we'll go over those in a few seconds. But the important thing is that prototyping is essential if you want to follow a human-centered design process, or if you want to accelerate your development and like, I'm just going to name some of the benefits. Like, first of all, with prototyping, you'll be able to validate your idea early because you can see and grab and actually touch, in a way, what you're planning to build. And the second major benefit is that everybody involved, the whole team, even like any stakeholder, from like investors to customers, anyone involved in the process has no communication gaps, and communication gaps usually are huge between designers and developers, because like they understand different things in different ways. So if you have a visual representation and the simulation of what you're trying to build, there are no misunderstandings. And the third main advantage is that you can actually test your prototype with real users, which is unlike the case of a hardware prototype, which can be tested by one user. A software prototype can actually be tested by thousands of users without the need of building that product first before you test it. So I'm going to talk briefly of the types of the prototypes. So, and I will try to make you understand what a prototype is by showing you one. So prototypes vary in visual fidelity and interaction fidelity. So visual fidelity is how things look. The first and simplest prototype anyone can do, and everyone should do, it's a sketch. Because everybody can sketch. We are taught sketching from 2 years old. It doesn't matter if you are a good sketcher or a bad sketcher, it's a sketch. So by sketching your idea out, you can visualize it, you can create the flow of your software, you can see if your idea works well. But sketches, even if you use them in post-it notes and put them on the wall, usually they are hard to share and they're hard to play with. So the second step of prototyping will be a higher fidelity in design, which is medium fidelity design, and medium fidelity interaction, meaning that there are software that allows us to create mock-ups of our software, and those mock-ups are usually used with no graphics, like with gray areas like the middle part that we see here, and just to distinguish the areas and the layout of our software. And you can add interactions so that when you click on different parts of this software, you will go to the next part, whether that's a website or a mobile app or anything else. And the third and last level of prototyping is the high fidelity interaction and high fidelity visual prototyping, which means it's the real thing and will look and behave like the final product when you launch it. And that's super useful because, first of all, you can test it on your computer that you usually use to build the prototype, but you can also test it on the mobile device. And this means that you can test it with real people. And the notion behind the prototyping process is that you need to test before you build. Once you start building with code, it's a high risky process, an expensive process, and any change will definitely change your deadlines in terms of the milestones, in terms of time and money. So prototyping happens at all levels and by anyone, by small companies, by large companies, for new products, for new features, for small sub-products of products. And the concept is that we need to test it with real users and follow the concept of the human-centered design and see if it resonates well with users, what the problems are, and always iterate to make it perfect before we go to production. So when do we prototype and why? We prototype as early as possible. So from the moment we have an idea, we sit among a group in a team to build the software, we need to start prototyping. And we should stop prototyping when the product goes off the market, so when it's dead, in other words. Because even after you launch the product, there will be changes, everything changes in software today, so you need to maintain this methodology across the life span of your product. So as early as possible, and then why? The first, and one of the most important reasons, is to validate your idea early. Is to validate the idea so that you don't spend time, money, energy to build the software before you validate it. The second reason will be easier communication. No communication, no miscommunication, no misunderstandings. You bridge all the gaps, even in closed teams or remote teams. You can easily share a prototype with another team member and explain all the behavior and all the interactions and all the things that need to be developed. And if I narrow down the benefits is just 3, the last benefit is that you can actually share your prototype with anyone and test it. Not just get the opinion of your friends and family, but actually use thousands of unknown users that fit your target audience and test the prototype. And of course, as I mentioned already before, you need to iterate and iterate and iterate, which means that you iterate the design and prototype process and testing process. I design, I prototype, and then I test. And testing means with users. Before, and that's the most important thing, before you start writing a single line of code. Because that's your high risk, and that's where things could go. So, how? Someone may ask, how can we create a prototype? And of course, as I already mentioned, Sketch is the simplest form of prototyping, so all you need is a notepad and pen. The second level of prototyping, or another way of prototyping, will be with code. And as many of you understand, code is restrictive only to developers. So, but prototyping should be for everyone. Whether you're a technical person, or a designer, or an entrepreneur, or business person, doesn't really matter. You can actually bring your idea to life and visualize it and test it with real people. And that's why there are a lot of prototyping software out in the market. A lot of them are actually available either as a software desktop application or as a web application, and you can sign up and try them for free, try them out. They are visual interfaces, which means that no coding skills are required. A lot of the prototyping tools, like our tool Pro.io, it's actually a non-designer's tool as well, so that you don't have to be a designer to design with Pro.io, because there are many UI libraries available for you to drag and drop and build your ideas and build your app designs or your web pages or desktop applications. Thank you very much. Just to give you a last closing note, this is the actual high-fidelity prototype that we saw before in the 3 levels of prototyping. And as you can see, this prototype is fully interactive. I can click, I can actually get data and enter data in it. I can actually see animations. And the most important thing is that this same prototype can actually work on your mobile device, whether that's an iPhone, tablet, Android device. It looks, it feels, it works like a real app. And that's important because users don't really understand whether they're testing a real app or a prototype. And you can interact with it, you can pretty much do anything that you would do on the real app, and test and validate your idea. Thank you very much. Myself and my team will be here if you have any questions or if you need a demo. One more thing before closing. We've created a special promo page for anyone that wants to try our Pro.io. We have a special 3-month free account. You can sign up on this URL. I guess the organizers can share this by an email with you. And if you need to reach out, feel free to email me. Thank you very much.